Welcome back to Important Library Stuff, a podcast where library staff share the inside scoop on all the stuff that happens at Prince William Public Libraries. And trust us, it's a lot of stuff. I'm your host, Emily Bickers, media specialist from the Office of Communications and Marketing, and I am joined each episode by fellow staff members, and on this one, a special guest, who know a lot more on each episode's topic than I do, which for this episode is Summer Scares. Today, I'm not only joined by Summer Scares programmers Roseanne Northjack from Manassas City Library.
Hi.
And Matt McClellan from Haymarket Gainesville Library.
Hello.
But we'll also be hearing from 2024's Summer Scares spokesperson and acclaimed author, Clay McLeod Chapman, a little later in the episode. So what is the Summer Scares program?
So Summer Scares is a reading program that provides libraries and schools with an annual list of recommended horror titles for adult, young adult, and middle grade readers. It introduces readers and librarians to new authors and helps start conversations extending beyond the books from each list and promotes reading for years to come. And this year's Summer Scare is sponsored by Booklist, United for Libraries, Novelist, and Book Riot.
They also include a Summer Scares programming guide, which they create each year by the Springfield Greene County Library, and it's free for libraries everywhere to access if they want to create any kind of programming around their Summer Scares.
Awesome. And like the big goal of Summer Scares is to get people to read horror all the time, right?
Yes.
So why should folks be reading horror books year round?
Okay, I think the obvious reason is that great horror is published all year, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with saving all of your horror vibes for October, but if you do, then you're missing out on a lot of great horror the other 11 months of the year.
Yes, absolutely, because horror doesn't belong to any particular holiday or season. I love reading horror books in October around Halloween, but because I'm feeling particularly spooky that time of year. But there isn't any reason to stop once Halloween is over. There's horror for every time and place and season and holiday. Horror is just too big and too amazing to be kept into just one part of the year. You can have fun getting scared with horror books all year.
Anytime is the right time to be scared.
That's right.
And Matt, you're a great person to talk about this because you host the Read by Dawn book club.
That's right, yes. We pick a variety of different books from classics to new horror, and we meet on the final Monday of every month virtually to discuss them.
Awesome. So why do you guys love the horror genre?
I kind of grew up with it in my family. It wasn't exactly taboo or forbidden, but a lot of you're too young to read/watch this, which of course, if you're any parent, is exactly what your kid is going to do. And my brother read a lot of Stephen King in high school, so I was watching him read that, and I got kind of curious. And then once I got my own library card, there was no stopping me. And I checked out a lot of Christopher Pike, R.L. Stine, and Anne Rice. And so I kind of started reading it, and it was just interesting to me. What I love about horror, introducing it to readers, is that there's literally something for everyone. It is very accessible. Fear is a kind of unifying emotion that a lot of people have, but it's with a lot of different things. And some people have like hard no's, like I do not want to read this. Like I don't particularly like body horror, so I don't read a lot of that. But some people kind of face or overcome their phobias by reading about it in a safe environment, because what your mind can conjure is often way more scarier than something you see on the screen. So when you're reading horror, it kind of gives you your own imagination, free reign to come up with scary things. And you can also like just kind of put it down or put it away. So I really like that you can kind of ease into it, or you can just go full bore and pick up a Chuck Palahniuk book and read that.
I love the horror genre for several different reasons. I love the feeling of being scared, but in a safe way. I'm not like a thrill seeker. I don't like roller coasters. I don't like getting freaked out in that way, but I love whenever the words on a page can freak me out in that way, and how it impacts my imagination. It's the same thing with horror movies. It's fun for me to read a story or be immersed in a story that scares me, but in the other way, it's also kind of a safe way to do it. I love also how universal horror is. Everyone gets scared of things, and sometimes it's fun just to confront those fears, again, in a safe way, because it is just a book, but also it's not just a book.
It's fun to compare a foreign horror concept to the same American version, like The Ring and Japanese horror versus American horror too. And so you're kind of expanding your worldview to see how other cultures treat horror and what things that they're afraid of and that are legends in that world, which is really eye-opening and fun.
Definitely.
So as you said, Summer Scares is a national program, and this is Prince William Public Library's first year bringing it to our community. A panel of authors, including Clay McLeod Chapman and library workers around the country, chose the reading list of 9 titles that you mentioned, 3 in each age group. So I want to list them off. The adult selections include Jackal by Aaron E. Adams, Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison, and This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. The young adult picks are All These Bodies by Kendara Blake, Dead Flip by Sarah Farazan, and Hashtag Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. And the middle grade selections, which is roughly ages 8 to 11, are Ophi's Ghost by Justina Ireland, The Nest by Kenneth Opel, and My Aunt is a Monster by Rimena Yi. Have either of you had a chance to read any of these yet, or what are your thoughts?
I've managed to read the adult titles and a few of the middle grade titles. I'm still catching up, and I'm hoping to finish them before or during the month of July, whenever Summer Scares is happening, and my goal is to read all of them. But I really loved the titles that I've read so far. I've really felt that they're very different and accessible, and there's something for everyone.
I'm the bad librarian. I haven't read any of them yet. I've been on a book selection committee for the last 8 months, and so I haven't had a chance to do a lot of pleasure reading, but I want to read at least one from each category so that when we do our displays in July for Summer Scares, I can kind of recommend a book to a patron by saying, oh, I've read this, it's really good, and then I can actually, say I've read something. I have read other books by Rachel Harrison, and I've also read Anna Dressed in Blood, the duology by Kendara Blake, and that's also a really fun YA series. It's a fun premise. A ghost-busting teen falls in love with one of the ghosts he's supposed to kill. And they really tackle a lot of hard themes like grief and loss and family themes. And so on the surface, they are really fun, but at the same time, they kind of delve very deep into their own themes, which I really like. And I love that My Aunt is a Monster is a graphic novel. I love anytime a graphic novel is included on these lists, but a lot of them have been showing up throughout the years on other lists as being really good. So I've been aware of them. I just haven't quite had time to get to them yet, but I will.
That's kind of the cool thing of whenever they make the selections for their Summer Scares lists is that they don't pick a lot of newer books. They pick books that are a couple years old so that they're more widely available for readers. It's not as hard to get a hold of these books. They've been in libraries for a year or more. And so that's also a very important thing, is that not only can we have the list to be able to recommend to patrons, but that we most likely have them on our shelves and can get them to them pretty quickly.
Yes, or it's if you're like me and you love audiobooks, they're also on Hoopla or Libby. And I like that a lot of these authors, some of them, they are pretty well entrenched in the horror genre, but for some of them, like Sarah Farazan, this is her first book I've seen in horror. She didn't write a horror novel previous to this. It was a kind of a young romance with LGBTQ characters. And Justina Ireland, this is her first foray, I think, into middle grade. She wrote a zombie YA duology, so that's nice in that if you find a patron that really likes a certain author, you can say, oh, well, they also write this if they're into that particular type of horror. So it's nice to see some variety and some extension of their talent into different ages, because not every author can do that well. So I'm very excited to kind of read these and see.
Yes, exactly. And also the adult selections, Jackal by Aaron Adams and This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. It's their debut books as well. Rachel Harrison has written a few books now. They're all really good. I think that Such Sharp Teeth is a great way to be exposed to her writing. You kind of get a vibe for how she writes. But the other two, it's their first books. And so you can kind of now, after reading them, you can look forward to, what's to come from them.
All right, so we have the official picks, but both of you are very accomplished horror readers on your own. I was wondering if you had 3 picks each, one for middle grade, one for young adults, and one for adults that you'd personally add to the list.
I had to look back on my Goodreads and to kind of just see, okay, what horror novels have I rated 5 stars? My top 5 for adult, they were all written by Josh Malerman. All his novels were solid. So Unbury, Carol, Daphne, and Bird Box are just absolutely amazing, and I adore almost everything he writes. For teens, the one I went back and actually reread recently that I read as a teen or a new adult was Rotters by Daniel Kraus, about a boy whose mother dies and he's sent to live with his father, who has no idea how to take care of kids and robs graves for a living. If you'll pardon the pun, that's just barely scratching the surface of this book. And it's completely unputdownable. And the more you look, the more you are horrified, but you can't look away. And for middle grade, this is actually the area I'm least read in or least familiar with. So I'm going to do a complete cop-out and recommend Coraline and the Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Both are excellent stories about children who are going through kind of an identity crisis or an identity configuration, and their whole world is turned upside down by the discovery of another world. So for Coraline, it's the world of the other mother. And for Bod, it's his blossoming friendship with a witch and a man who killed his family, existing just outside the graveyard where he lives, being raised by ghosts. Gaiman writes such well-developed characters that I feel like most middle grade and teen kids today should be aware of these works, as they're kind of like cornerstones to getting middle grade and teens into horror, I think. So those are my recommendations. I would love to hear Matt's, because I can add them to my to-read list.
I went with a lot of newer books for these because there's classics out there that you can always find and recommend that are like the tried and true, the reader is going to be a fan of them. For my adult pick, I went with Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. Kind of an updated Rosemary's Baby, creepy old building, definitely some creepy scenes that'll give you chills, but it's not too over the top. That'll scare away new horror readers, but gargoyles and vampires, it's fantastic. For my teen recommendation, I went with Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. It's a coming-of-age queer horror for teens, small town, very mysterious, a lot of questions that the main character is trying to find out. It's so good. And then for my middle grade pick, I went with Scare Waves by Trevor Henderson. It has a lot of stuff that age of patron is interested in. There is internet legends and cryptids and creatures and monsters, and it's really fun. It's really accessible, and yeah, highly recommended.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So what about for our youngest readers? My friend's 5-year-old recently discovered the Mr. Shivers series by Max Brallier, but might be a little bit too young for this year's middle grade selections.
For starters, you do have to go with the classics, Goosebumps and Fear Street and
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yes,
if you can find the original Stephen Gammell illustrations, I would highly recommend those over the newer ones, because for whatever reason, they redid them. So yeah. The original is the best for that.
They're just as creepy as the stories, and in some cases more than, but perfect for that age group. But also there's some newer stuff like The Clackety by Laura Sempf, which is fantastic. The Eerie Elementary series by Carrie Kingsley, and Nightmares with an exclamation point by Jason Segel and Kirsten Miller are some newer books. But there's also, even younger than that, fun, spooky picture books out there that you can find. The Spooky Old Tree, which is a Berenstain Bears book, which creeped me out as a kid and maybe contributed to my love now. Also, The Creepy Crayon by Aaron Reynolds, or a newer book called The Skull by John Klassen. There's no shortage of horror books for all ages.
Lemony Snicket wrote a picture book called The Dark, or The Darkness, and that one is also like confronting your fear of the dark, and it's very, very spooky, but it really resonates with kids. And I am, of course, in my picture book era with a 5-year-old, so I would also recommend Flavia Z. Drago. They have a really amazing series of spooky books that center around a particular character. So they have Gustavo the Shy Ghost, Layla the Perfect Witch, and Vlad the Fabulous Vampire. And these are all like creatures that exist a little bit outside the mold in their world, and it's about how they can find acceptance and express themselves. And they're really, really great illustrated, and they tell great stories as well.
All right, we are now joined by Clay McLeod Chapman, spokesperson for the Summer Scares program this year and author of books What Kind of Mother, Ghost Eaters, Whisper Down the Lane, and many more, including a new novel arriving January 7th, 2025, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. I'm here with Matt and Roseanne.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hey guys. Hi. Hello.
So we had a few questions for you. What do you love most about the horror book genre?
Man, what do I love the most? Oh, man. I mean, it's so funny because I was just talking to somebody about Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman, his brand new book. And that book is so scary. I'm not going to say how old I am. I'm like 200 years old at this point, but I'm an adult. I'm a grown man who still gets scared when I read a really scary book. It does all the things that, when you're like 6 years old or when you're 10 years old, 13 years old, like I feel like I'm always kind of chasing that dragon of like what scared me as a kid, and trying to kind of duplicate or replicate that as an adult. And books like Incidents Around the House do that to me. And I think it'll do it to you because it's a scary, scary book. So yeah, I think my answer is what I love about the horror genre and horror books in particular is that you can read to yourself. And if a book is clicking, you end up starting to have those feelings of like being a kid again. And like, you're like, oh my God, I am going to sleep with the lights on tonight.
Yeah, that's great. No matter how many you read or even how many you write, still get scared.
Right? I mean, that's when you know something's working.
Absolutely. So why did you decide to get involved in the Summer Scares program?
Well, crassly because they asked. I mean, it's an honor. Like, I get to spend the whole summer just talking about books that blow my mind, like the scariest books of the last 10 years. Like, that's not a job. That's not a responsibility. That's like a calling. I usually do that no matter what. So to like be able to do it in some sort of like professional manner is just kind of putting a bow on my head. I would do it anyways. I've been doing it anyways. I'm like on the street corners talking about, Gus Moreno and Rachel Harrison and Aaron E. Adams. Now I just get to do it in an official capacity.
That's amazing. So I know it was very polite of you as a selector to not put your books on the list this year.
I will. It's totally crass, but when we were talking about middle grade books, I was like, well, I just so happen to have written a middle grade book, and and they were like, yeah, no. Sorry, Clay, you're the spokesperson.
Well, here is your chance. Which of your own books do you think are the perfect summer read?
Oh wow, I think people seem to like Ghost Eaters the most. I feel like What Kind of Mother, which came out a while ago, like just recently, like that has beach read vibes, kind of like Nicholas Sparks Gone Wrong vibes. So that feels like a good summer read. The Remaking was a Summer Scares read a few years back. So I don't know if I've negated myself. You said to pick the one. So if I had to pick the one, I would say Ghost Eater.
I love it. And then what was that middle grade recommendation you had?
Oh, man. I wrote a trilogy of middle grade novels called the Tribe series. The first one was called Homeroom Headhunters, and it was so much fun. I loved it. That was like one of my favorites. But book 2 is called Camp Cannibal, and it actually takes place at a summer camp. So do you know of any reluctant readers in your life who are looking to get a little rambunctious with their reading this summer? Yeah, I think they're out there somewhere in the ethereal ether.
That's awesome. Why should reluctant horror readers at any age give the genre a try, even adults who have maybe tried to avoid it thus far?
I mean, not to get too heavy, like the world is a pretty scary place, and for me, I feel as if horror in terms of, film and literature, like it's a kind of welcome respite from the horrors of the real world. And sometimes they can even offer the kind of coping mechanisms or tools to kind of better understand the real world horrors that we may deal with on daily basis, nightly basis, however horror kind of comes into your life. I think that fiction is there as a means to kind of better understand what we go through in real life.
Yeah, no, that's very well put.
Do it fun. Be fun with it. Like, it's, it's still a roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely. I want our listeners to know that they'd like to hear you read spooky stories and ask you questions yourself. We are thrilled to announce that you will be visiting Haymarket Gainesville Library this Saturday, July 6th at 6 p.m.
Yes, I can't wait. Here it comes.
And they can also bring their own books to be signed and enter a book raffle. So thank you so much for joining us and answering our questions, and we can't wait to see you on Saturday.
Yay, can't wait. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Take care.
Oh, awesome. Have a good one. Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right. So now I am back with Roseanne and Matt.
If you follow him on Instagram, it is such a treat. He is never not promoting horror. He goes into bookstores and shouts out other authors and is like, you should be reading this. You should be reading this. Look, these are my friends. It's a joy. We are very privileged to have him. He's a fantastic person and a amazing representative for this genre. He really is.
One last reminder, this Saturday, July 6th, 6 p.m., Haymarket Gainesville Library, mostly for young adults and adults, but head on over and hear from Clay McLeod Chapman yourself because he is awesome.
Be there and be scared.
Exactly. And the program is sponsored by the Friends of Haymarket Gainesville Library, so we're very appreciative to them.
Yes, we love the Friends.
So besides this awesome author visit, what other programs are happening at PWPL to celebrate Summer Scares?
We have a lot of great things happening at libraries all over the county. Halloween in July, Story Trail for kids, 3 Sentence Horror Story Challenge, Monster Terrarium, and Oh the Horror Game Night for teens, and Horror Trivia Night at Great Maine Brewery and Haymarket for adults.
We also have displays where you can write a brief review of a book. We'll have little bookmarks that you can fill out. And if you turn those in, you can get entered into a drawing to win a spooky prize. And it's open to each age group. And I know several branches, including Manassas City, are doing that as well. And that's going to be all month long. So kind of look forward to that.
Do you guys have any parting thoughts or tips?
If you're not already part of the incredible Read by Dawn Horror Book Club, you absolutely should be. It's an amazing book club that actually reads a great variety of horror novels. So I am also a member, and I kind of love how it introduces me to books I normally wouldn't pick up and read. And half the time is hearing what people didn't like about it, because then you're finding out more about what people's preferred type of horror is. So that's a wonderful program. And if you're looking for kind of intro into the horror genre that isn't Stephen King, although there's nothing stopping you from checking out anything he's ever written, you should look for authors such as Grady Hendrix or Paul Tremblay. They are both equally fantastic.
I would say if you're curious, dip your toe in, try it. And maybe if you're afraid to read horror for the first time or something that is classified as horror, maybe try reading it with a buddy. That way you're able to talk through some of the things. That's kind of one of the good things about the book club. Having Read by Dawn be a way to discuss books with people who are well-versed in horror and alongside in the same kind of room as people who are reading it maybe for the first time. You can see kind of what people's tastes are, what they like, what they don't like, and always have the knowledge that what's coming next is going to be completely different. It's going to be from a different point of view. It's going to be from a different type of author who has had their own life experiences and is interpreting them in their own way. So if you don't like one type of horror, keep looking. There's so much out there. The genre is so huge that there is literally something for everybody.
And #no shame. It is absolutely fine if you do not finish what you read or you just find that one particular author does not resonate with you. There's a short story collection that has a wraparound story around it by Chuck Palahniuk called Ghosts. I read the first short story and could not finish it because I was so terrified. So I do what any millennial would do is I go on Wikipedia and I read the summary and just say, oh, okay, this is what I was missing. And I've also not finished stories that just I wasn't feeling at the time, and then I'd pick them up later. So you absolutely don't have to finish something if you don't want to. And a lot of people, I think, feel really guilty about that.
I would also recommend you going to the library and asking one of the librarians there what if they can recommend titles for you or subjects. I've had younger patrons come in and ask for scary books about dolls, and I can't wait to find those books for you. So anything that you are curious about, anything you're interested in and maybe scared to kind of look on your own, librarians are waiting to help you find what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And then, I also wanted to throw in there, besides books, also on Canopy, our streaming service, there's some horror films.
A lot of great horror
They're
films.
also on Hoopla too.
Yes.
I've watched a lot that way.
All right, well, thank you both so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
I will close this out with a quote from the book reference in the episode title, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Am I walking towards something I should be running away from? Thanks for listening, and join us next month for the next episode of Important Library Stuff.